consider buying your processed oboe and bassoon cane from those friendly folks over at Barton Cane. Processed with care and precision for your everyday reed-making needs. Take the pain and injury out of reed-making by letting Barton Cane do the hard, repetitive, boring stuff. Free up time for practicing, happy hours, hikes, baking, and spending time with friends and family. Barton Cane, here for you. Visit www.bartoncane.com.
Ugly Duckling Oboes is dedicated to the development of young oboe players. They provide quality handmade oboe reeds, private lessons, and high-quality oboe sales, rentals, and consignments. The oboes that they rent are conservatory mechanism oboes that include the left-hand F key and low B flat key. All are maintained by oboe-specific technicians. In-person lessons are available, as well as virtual lessons for students who live outside the geographic area or have transportation and scheduling challenges. They also offer online college audition coaching for high school juniors and seniors who plan to audition to be music majors. Visit uglyducklingoboes.com for more details on how you can set up yourself for success and sign up for their newsletter. That's uglyducklingoboes.com.
Hi, I'm Galit Kaunitz.
And I'm Jackie Wilson, and you're listening to Double Reed Dish,
a podcast for oboists,
bassoonists,
and the people who love them.
How's it going? Long time no see.
It kind of feels like I know it hasn't, but it feels like it has.
So people were really excited about the dish topic. So I say we just kind of dive in.
Let's go.
And the enthusiasm for this topic to me kind of shows the necessity of talking about it. And you and I had kind of the idea to talk about burnout and feelings of, frustration. And to be honest, like we are very fine to get into with our guests, right? We're very fine to lead our guests to ask other people about their vulnerabilities. And, we kind of pride ourselves on creating this show where like we're putting that stuff out into the open. But if at least I'll speak for myself, me being honest, one, we want the show to be a positive thing. And so we try to really prioritize that, but also like it's very vulnerable making. And so it was just interesting to me that when we said this was going to be a dish topic and ask people, our listeners to contribute, that people were immediately like very excited about having honest conversations about this topic. And we'll make sure to get into their responses. But I mean, let's just start by talking about, checking in with you and kind of your thoughts on this topic.
I'll tell you, just to be 100% honest and vulnerable, this is the most burnt out I have ever been in my life. Like, this COVID and then coming back to in-person work after COVID, it is the most run down and burnt out I think I've ever felt.
Right.
And I don't really know what to do about it. I took a week off to go on a vacation to visit family. And then I came back and I immediately have to jump into these rehearsals and concerts. And I was just talking to my wife last night and I was like, I don't even know if I would feel better taking the whole summer off. Like I don't even know how much time I would require to not feel this depleted.
Well, and it's hard because we had all that time at home. So we got out of practice of, working in the same way, attending rehearsals, going. But at the same time, the pandemic was definitely not like fortifying or recharging. And so it's like we're out of practice with the stuff that takes all this energy, but we didn't have any rejuvenation.
And I don't know about you, but my attention span is like the length of a mouse blinking. Like sitting through a 2.5 hour rehearsal right now, I'm like scratching at the walls trying to get out of my chair.
Right.
Which feels very ungrateful to say because I'm happy to have the work and I'm lucky to have the work and it's really great music and I am grateful for it. But at the same time, I'm like shifting in my seat, like twitching, trying to get to the end of the rehearsal.
Yeah, if I'm being honest, the thing you just touched on is one of the hardest things for me to deal with, which is knowing that there's more supply than demand in our field, that I'm so lucky to have a job. As I was thinking about this, I was like, how does burnout manifest itself in my life? And one of the things I came to was like, when I have so much music on my shelf that my practicing is just like, got to get to this, and feeling like I didn't even get to every piece in my practice time. And then I was like, kind of slapped my own hand, like, Jackie, that's such a entitled perspective of like, oh my God, I'm giving too many performances. I have too much rep. And it's like, I feel like I can't feel tired because tired is the opposite of grateful. Like I feel like my mind has it kind of hardwired those two things together that to acknowledge that I need a rest is the same as being ungrateful. Another thing, I can't really separate burnout from my introversion. And I know that experience is unique to me. Maybe people can relate, maybe other people can't relate, but like I get stressed out when my days are totally full. Yeah. So like, I'm not that person who can like work a full-time higher ed job and do a bunch of regional orchestras because I feel like I work all day and then I eat dinner and then I go back to work and I work till 10 p.m. And if I don't have days like a weekend or in summer, completely open days, and that can make me feel like, I guess, kind of like scarcity panic of time off. But then at the same time, like part of why having this conversation, I wouldn't say I was reluctant to do, but just kind of like why I'm not super open about these feelings a lot of times is because I have this scarcity mindset of like, if I talk about this, or if I set boundaries, or if I say no thanks to something, people are going to be like, oh, don't call Jackie. She doesn't want that opportunity, that thing, that this, that. So it's kind of like you feel like you can never say, oh, thanks, I'm full. Because then what if I end up starving because nothing ever gets put on my plate again? Yeah. And you feel like you don't have the right to just say like, oh, thanks, I'm full. This is enough for me for now.
You feel like you have to go 100 miles per hour for the rest of your career.
Right.
Part of it too is I think the mentor aspect of teaching has been a very heavy burden through COVID and then coming out of COVID. I mean, I love my students with every cell in my body and I am more than happy to do that. But it feels like it came at more of a cost to my emotional well-being than it usually does.
Right. Well, because I think us as music teachers are different from like other types of teachers because often our students do have an emotional connection to us. And if something, say, happens in their even personal lives, a musical, a lot of times it's us that they want to process with.
Yeah. And I'm so honored and happy to be that person. But I don't know, it just feels like the things that everybody was dealing with over the last 3 years have been a lot heavier.
Right. And so if you're the receptacle who's helping people process and you have a studio of over a dozen people, you're dealing with a lot of heavy.
Yeah. So I don't know, how do you think, what are your strategies for dealing with burnout?
1, I would like us to talk about strategies. 2, I would like for you and I to also acknowledge like right now, we are both going, ooh, this dish is too sad. This is going to bum people out and we need to put a silver lining on it somehow. Like that's just so a part of like, as musicians, we're conditioned that we can't like speak our weaknesses. True. And so we are going to go to the silver lining, but I do want to say like, it's okay that we're just kind of speaking these truths. Yeah. Like Philip Ewell, I talk about his work all the time, but one thing he talks about, it's not related to burnout, but he talks about the problem with being solutionist And that when you're dealing with a problem, a lot of times we just go like, how do we solve it? How do we solve it? And that can be helpful, but sometimes it can also skip the step of analyzing what is causing the problem in the first place. And it can cause us to engage in action before we really understand a problem comprehensively. But yeah, his work encourages the reader to sit in analytical discomfort for a while, to just kind of learn what they can from the matter at hand before immediately jumping to solutions.
That is so valid. And I'm so glad that you said that, because I was like, this is getting real heavy. Let's lighten it up.
It's double reed dish. We giggle. No, we're human. We're all just human.
Yeah, let's giggle about our sad tiredness for a second.
We're feeling burnt out. Da 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 da. No. So yeah, what strategies have you tried? Even if they weren't super successful, what are kind of some things that you look to?
Yeah, I'm not sure I try anything that's all that successful or healthy. I do love an avoidance nap.
That works. Or doesn't.
If I get overwhelmed, sometimes I just go to sleep. Yeah, I don't know. I think this is part of the problem, is that I don't really have
coping strategies.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. I just kind of try to muscle through it and then move on to the next thing, which maybe is why I'm feeling like this in the first place.
It could be. So maybe trying different coping strategies could be.
And not just going to full system shutdown immediately.
Yeah, not just muscling through. You know, one thing that has helped, I guess, two things that have kind of helped me lately. I have started saying no. Like, I've got a lot of plates spinning right now. And over the summer, I've had a couple people approach me with some new things to contribute on. And I have said no a couple times.
Good for you.
Was completely racked with fear while saying it. I'll be completely honest, was just like, oh God, this is going to get, not only this person will never approach me with an opportunity again, but it will get a complete eye roll. Oh, Jackie's so busy type thing. Like, I was very nervous to say no. But I have started just kind of like declining certain things if I really feel there's no space. I also instituted a rule that every year I take 2 straight weeks off from the bassoon. I wanted to try to find 2-week sessions. I was not able to do that, but August 1st through 14th, I will not be touching the bassoon. And I'm looking forward to that and hoping that will, be rejuvenating and help me reconnect with the parts of myself that are not a musician / bassoonist.
Do you count reed making in that?
That's not my boundary. Like, I can work on reeds, but it's just basically practicing and playing and gigs. I just basically want a chance to miss it. If I go a whole year without taking that time off, practice can start to feel like a chore. By the time I've taken 2 weeks off from my instrument, I'm pretty ready to play at the end of that. And also when I'm feeling overwhelmed, going, there is a break coming up. This does not last forever. Get to August 1st and there is a break, and just kind of like knowing this is coming up.
That's a good idea. I think I'm going to try taking 2 weeks off in August, because I think I can do it.
You could do it at the same time as me, maybe, and we could do it together.
That's the best kind of accountability.
Yes, break accountability. Maybe we should do it as a podcast thing of like, tell us when you're taking your break. Well, we asked our listeners for their advice and thoughts on this. Like we said, people are really excited to talk about this. Why don't you share some of our gems from our correspondence with our listeners?
I loved this comment. Without going into too much detail, I took 2 weeks off from playing after classes ended and went on long hikes almost every day to remind myself that the trees, rivers, and lakes don't care about how my reeds are doing or whether I'm working on the right projects. This year was the most severe and longest continuous streak of burnout I've experienced so far. Thank you for addressing this topic. Openness is so helpful and appreciated.
We had another listener say, let's normalize being open about musical and creative burnout. Many of us have spouses, children, aging parents, jobs, houses, and bills. Yet we are required to travel, practice, perform, learn, and teach as if it's the only thing we do. Ooh, preach. If it is, and you're great at balancing all you have, terrific. But some of us truly burn out and suffer health problems. Making it okay to take a break, admit you're overwhelmed, and take time for rest is important. This year was the worst for me ever too, because I refused to think that I'm, quote, washed up, because I recognized that I needed a change and a break.
I could not agree more. Here's another great comment. Love this. A burnout tip. It can take a really long time to recover. For someone who is burned out, having patience and compassion for yourself is key. But the one thing I had wished I knew beforehand is that you can't recover from burnout in a week off. I pushed way beyond my means for way too many years under the mentality of, when this is done, I'll take a break. By break, I was envisioning a week off, even a summer off, but it's literally taking years to recover and still going. I'll never do that again. Not worth it. Health is the number one priority. Without it, we can't do anything anyway.
Well, and I think what this listener is pointing to is that this builds on itself. And that if you keep saying, oh, tomorrow, 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 or not dealing with it, it can have a really cumulative effect. And so it is okay to set up boundaries and listen to what your body and mind and emotions are telling you you need, and to ask for it and to take it.
And it's really nice to know that we're not alone.
You are not alone. We are not alone. And expressing feelings of fatigue or burnout or even frustration does not mean that you're ungrateful and hate what you do.
Chemical City Double Reeds is a full-service double reed shop specializing in the sale of instruments, cane, accessories, and sheet music. Double Reed Dish listeners can enjoy free shipping with code DRDISH. Visit them in Baton Rouge, Louisiana, or online at www.chemicalcityreeds.com.
Hey oboists! Have you ever found it difficult to sort out when and how to find a new oboe or English horn? Oboe Chicago streamlines the process, providing personal and professional consultation and a large selection of lovely instruments. The process feels comfortable and thorough. Selection includes Effleuré of Paris, Howarth of London, Covey oboes, and Fox products. For a current listing of Oboe Chicago's selection, please visit www.oboechicago.com. For a credit of $100 towards shipping, mention Double Reed Dish when you call or email Shauna. That's oboechicago.com. We are so delighted to welcome Dr. Andrew W. Parker, Assistant Professor of Oboe at the Greenwood School of Music at Oklahoma State University. Welcome.
Hi, thank you so much for having me.
We always start the same way. We want to know how you came to the oboe. How did you get started playing this wacky instrument?
All right, so I'll give you the quick story. I started on piano when I was younger, 6, 7, somewhere in there. Music's kind of skipped a generation, skipped my parents' generation. I come from a musical family. My dad's father was actually an opera singer. He sang opera on the radio when that was a thing. Like, you would go and opera singers would sing on the radio. And his wife was a pianist, and she actually was the one who kind of introduced me to the piano. My dad's grandmother, because I would go over there and I would slap on the piano, and I loved the sounds, and she would kind of teach me little things. And then at some point she said to my parents, you should get him piano lessons. He seems to like this. He seems to be good at it. And that's kind of where music started. Also, my mom's side of the family, her father, his family or his heritage, they were vaudeville musicians. They immigrated from Europe. And I think his family was from Israel, I believe. And early on, they immigrated here, and his parents were singers, and his sister was a singer, and he played the violin, and they played the vaudeville circuit all around the United States. And his thing was that he played the violin while did Russian step dancing. And I actually have an article from Ripley's Believe It or Not where he was
where they squat and one leg goes.
Squat and they do the thing.
Okay.
Yeah, he played the violin.
Yeah, but playing the violin, like playing the melodies, and he would dance to what he was playing. And
Wow.
he was in when Ripley's Believe It or Not was just a newspaper article, like a newspaper thing. He was featured in that, and we have that. We have his feature. My grandmother died about 5 years ago, and when we cleaned out her attic, we found his tap shoes. We have his violin and his costume. And we also found their gig book where they kept track of every performance at what theater, the dates, and how much they got paid. And the amazing part is that because so many vaudeville theaters were in the Northeast, and I'm from New York originally, I have now performed in many of the theaters that he performed in when he was a vaudeville musician.
Aw.
That is wild.
Really amazing. My goal is to one day get one of those like curio cabinets that I can like display it in like a museum and have it in my living room.
I thought you were going to say your goal is to one day play the oboe while doing the Russian squat kicking dance.
That sounds disastrous. Very dangerous. That is bad. It's like oboe and marching band bad.
That sounds like a good way to lose a tonsil.
Right? But so it came to oboe. This is a little strange. It's going to come out a little strange, but it was great. My band director in elementary school in New York, I'm from Long Island originally, they actually started oboes in fourth grade. Band was fourth grade is when you started.
Wow.
And they were running out of oboes in the high school. Like the band directors had a couple of years where like no one had continued or they hadn't started any oboes in elementary school. And they were like, listen, every band director in the elementary schools, I think we had 5 or 6 elementary schools in our district. They're like, you all need to start one oboe player. And then hopefully out of those 6 oboe players, at least one will keep playing into high school. So my band director knew that I played piano and knew that I was already kind of singing in the choir. And he was like, hey, so I would love to show you this instrument. And what he said to me is, you have oboe lips. You have the perfect kind of mouth to play the oboe. And I thought that was a little kind of a strange thing to say. I didn't understand what that meant. What I like, of course, later in life, I realized I have a very large lower lip. And so like it is going to create like my lip naturally covers the sound. So like without trying, everyone always said to me, whether or not I was playing the right notes, was they're like, you have such a beautiful sound. Like your sound is always so gorgeous. And I never really had to try. I never really thought about it. And a lot of it, I think, has been, I just have a very large lower lip that covers the reed. So it just makes for a more cushioned sound.
That's a strange start, but also
It's a strange start, but it worked. I mean, it got me on the oboe. He like sent me home with an oboe that weekend, and I was like, okay, I guess I'll try it, and I did, and now here we are.
So, disclosure, you and I have been friends for a very long time.
In 2010, we met in the summer of 2010.
And when we met, you had a very strong Long Island accent.
I did, yes.
And you would say, it's time to go to orchestra.
It's time, everyone. It's orchestra time.
It's orchestra time. So can you please tell us about how you became a professional musician and started playing in orchestras?
Absolutely. I'd be more than welcome. So, mine. I had a very interesting road, actually. Lots of twists and turns, quitting the oboe at one point for a little while. I actually never intended to go to school for oboe. I always intended to go to school for music. I was pretty sure that I was going to go to school for voice and minor in piano and then get my master's in vocal coaching and then like be a vocal coach for Juilliard and the Met. Like that was the dream. And I was a tenor, you know, like my voice is my speaking voice is very high and my singing voice is very high. Like that was my thing. I was going to go do that and like be an oratorio tenor and like stuff. So, my senior year of high school, things started to change. Like my voice wasn't developing the way that I wanted it to. And I was coming home from voice lessons with like a sore throat and like things weren't great. I was having trouble trying to figure out what was happening with my voice teacher. We couldn't fix the problem. And I was like, you know what? I'm going to audition everywhere on oboe and voice. And then I had actually gone to a summer music festival in New York, the New York Summer School for the Arts, which is up in Saratoga Springs, New York. And I worked with the second oboe player of the Philadelphia Orchestra while I was there, Jonathan Bloomfeld. And I really liked him and I loved his playing and he had amazing reads and like everything felt good. And so I went and I decided to audition at Temple University. And I got there and I did my audition and I got home and a few weeks later I got accepted and I hadn't even finished my auditions yet. And I just said to my parents, I'm going there. I'm going to go to that school for oboe. I didn't fit, like I literally canceled my Juilliard audition, my Manhattan School of Music audition, like every school I hadn't auditioned at yet, just canceled them. I was like, no, I'm doing that. I still to this day, don't really even know what I was thinking at that point. I think I was just so frustrated with my voice. And it was like the first school that I heard back from. And I was just like, I'm doing that. I've already met the teacher. I know I'm going to be studying with him. I liked him. We're good to go. Thank you. Bye. Let's graduate and do this. And I went to Temple for about 3 semesters. And I just decided that it wasn't the right place for me. And I went to a summer masterclass with Bert Lucarelli in the summer after my freshman year and completely fell in love with him like everyone does.
Yeah, who doesn't?
Who doesn't fall in love with that man? He is just incredible. And I love him so much. And
Earth Angel.
I was really like hating the oboe and not particularly happy. And I was like, maybe I made the wrong decision. I was actually in conversations with the head of the opera program at Temple to change my major to voice. I was like, maybe I made a big mistake. And he was like, you made no mistake. You are doing exactly what you need to be doing. You just need the right guidance. And he's like, if you ever want to come take lessons or study with me, just let me know. So I called him in like October, my sophomore year. And I was like, great. How can I study with you? So he basically just told me he needed oboe players at SUNY Purchase. And he's like, well, you were from New York, so you can have state tuition and come to Purchase. And next thing I know, I left Temple and ended up there. And it was 100% the right decision. It's something I always tell any student that I work with. If you are unhappy, like you are in control of your life.
Oh, yeah.
It is your decision, your schooling, you're paying for it, your decision. Don't let anyone else make you feel like it is out of your control. It is not. And that really sort of taught me that. I think very early on that our lives are our own choices. And it's really important that we don't let other people make us feel as though we have no control over our life.
Mm-hmm.
So it was a great decision. He was an amazing teacher. Loved going to SUNY Purchase. I was one of like 2 or 3 oboe players the whole time. I got to play principal on major symphonies and English horn on incredible pieces and a bunch of operas and experiences I probably would never have had if I had been anywhere else. He then retired from teaching in my senior year and Steve Taylor came in. Mm-hmm. And I started studying with him and I had a great rapport with him and he was wonderful to work with. And I wanted to stay with him for a little bit longer. So I ended up going to Yale for my master's. And
oh, honey, he's in an Ivy League.
Oh, I'm one of those.
The catch.
Of course, my mother, Joanne Parker, she just, every time she meets someone, this is my son, he went to Yale. So she's very proud of that. I'm very proud of that. It was incredible. And then during my master's, I decided I really wanted to be a college professor. So I went to UT Austin for my doctorate and studied with Becky Henderson. She's a goddess on the oboe.
Mm-hmm.
And I think she taught me the most about reed making. She really was just an incredible reed maker and knew how to teach you how to be a teacher, and how to teach yourself. I think that was what I really loved about going there, is I learned how to teach myself, which was incredible. But I was pretty burnt out. I didn't take any time off in between degrees, and I was really exhausted. I was actually at Round Top Music Festival, and I got a phone call from my old boss when I was at Yale. Work study. There we go. That's how you say it. Work study job was to be the assistant to the orchestra manager. And I had done orchestra manager work before. In my undergrad, we had a conducting TA who graduated, and no one else wanted to take over. We didn't really have a conducting program. No grad students wanted to be the TA for the orchestra, and they said, well, you have an interest in arts admin. Even though you're not a grad student, would you like to run the orchestra? So when I was a junior, I became the orchestra manager for my undergrad. And then I kept doing that work with the actual orchestra manager at Yale. And then my graduate assistantship at UT Austin was to run the concert halls. I had an academic assistantship where I ran the box office and all the stage crew for all the concert halls. And so my old boss called me right before my dissertation year, and she said, hey, I got promoted to a new job and I need to replace myself. And you were the first person I thought of. Are you interested? And I was about to go into just being a part-time student to finish up my dissertation. So I interviewed and got the job and talked to UT Austin, and they talked to Yale, and we all agreed that I could still graduate on time, and Yale would give me the time I needed to finish my degree, and UT would give me the time to have a job. And I kind of transferred into arts admin. And after I did my last recital, I kind of put my oboe down for like a year and a half. I would pull it out maybe once a month and play some scales, and that's it. I really was like, I need a break from this. I'm exhausted. I kind of didn't know what direction I was going to go. I was only 25, since I hadn't taken any time off, and I'm young for my year. I have a very late birthday, and my birthday is right before Thanksgiving. So I just got into my grade when I was like in kindergarten. So I was very young when I finished, and I was like, what school is going to hire a 25-year-old to be a professor of oboe? You know, I'm going to have grad students older than me. And it was true. No one was interested in me yet. And I just said, I need a break. So I put the oboe down for a little over a year and did arts admin and really focused on being a good orchestra manager and taking care of the students at Yale and making sure that they were getting a good experience. And then suddenly I got called for a gig, and I went, oh no, I haven't played the oboe in a year. I need to practice. So I did, and I practiced, and then I went to Atlantic Music Festival that summer, and played for a month straight. And it kind of reminded me how much I loved it. And that was when I started to really practice again. And I spent almost an entire year playing scales and long tones and basically not taking gigs, not teaching students. I said, I'm just going to do what I've never really had a chance to do, which is get my fundamentals under control. And I spent a whole year just learning the fundamentals again. And then it kind of took off from there. I decided I needed to be somewhere where I could gig more. And the Northeast is amazing, but it's saturated with incredible, talented musicians. And there was no need for this orchestra manager who played the oboe. So I got a job at the Brevard Music Center as their artistic administrator, and being an alumni of that program, I was familiar with it. And Western North Carolina is just beautiful. And there's tons of regional orchestras and lots of students who wanted lessons. And I had an amazing experience working there. And my boss was the concertmaster of the Asheville Symphony. And he was very understanding of me wanting to go perform and teach any opportunity I got. He was like, yep, go, that's fine. Have a good day. Let me know what I can do. And about 2 years in, I was getting closer to 30, and I said to him, I think it's time that I start applying for teaching jobs again. And in that period of time living in North Carolina, I had won a principal oboe job with an orchestra. I had been appointed principal oboe of another regional orchestra. And then I was second oboe of another regional orchestra. And every time I turned around, there was a position opening that I would either take an audition or they would appoint me because they needed someone right away. And next thing I knew, I had 4 or 5 orchestras that I was playing with regularly. And it was amazing. It was like the dream to have a full-time job where I had a salary and benefits, but yet also had the ability to go play. And I taught adjunct at the local college, at Brevard College, and it was amazing. But doing all that reminded me of how much I really wanted to be just doing oboe and teaching. So I started applying for teaching jobs and had a couple of interviews and actually a couple of different offers that I decided just weren't the right thing for me. And then Oklahoma State came along and it felt right. It just felt like the place like the next step. My mom has always said to me, when the right thing shows up, you will know it and it will happen at just the right time. And she's always been right. Something just felt like this was the right next step. So that's kind of how I got here.
And it's such a testament to your work ethic and your personality, because if you are a person, like you just said, your mom always says, the right opportunity will present itself at the right time. That means that you are a person who not only is open to that kind of change, but is the person who your former boss thinks to call when there's an opening. Like your personality and like work style is just so easy for people to relate to and get along with. And that's such a good thing in our field to have those qualities where people are like, ooh, I have this opening. Who do I want to work with? Andrew Parker.
Mm-hmm.
Like that's such a huge part of it, I think. And it's such a testament to you.
I love that I took a different path. It's introduced me to people I never would have met. I think it makes me a better faculty member because I understand what it means to be a staff member.
Right.
For me, if I had stayed in orchestra management, one of my biggest things was whenever I interviewed for any job I was applying for in arts admin, I always said, I really want to get rid of this administration versus musician. I don't understand. Where did this come from? Why are we doing this to ourselves? So many administrators were musicians. We should understand what is needed. And I've always said I wanted to be the person that can stand on the fence and have a foot on both sides. I think it's so important, and I feel the same way in academia, that it's really important that we do not have staff versus faculty, because it just creates a bad atmosphere. And I really want there to be an understanding, and I think coming from the administrative background, I get what our administrators need, but I also get what we need as faculty and as musicians. And I try to find that balance as to where is the point. Like if we have a situation, we're trying to find a solution, what kind of solution can we find that is going to be mutually beneficial for both parts? And even if it means that not both parts are getting everything that they need, it is going to be a good balance. And I think that's where we come into problems, is people don't want to budge. They want their thing. They need their thing. But if you have someone who knows how to stand in the middle and say, okay, I get it. I see both sides because I am both sides. How can I help find that balance? How can I stand on the balancing beam? And I like being that person. I don't think I ever would have become that person if it hadn't been for the different path I took. It also makes me really appreciate what I do. I am completely in love with my students. Mm-hmm. I don't have any children myself. They are everything to me. And I think it is because that way, because it took me a little bit longer to get here. I didn't get out of school and immediately win a job. I didn't get out of school and I got out of school and quit the oboe. Like I put my oboe away, and getting called for a gig, getting asked to do an interview like this, these are the things that I appreciate them so much more, because it wasn't something that just fell in my lap and happened. It is something I've really had to work for. And I really try to encourage any student that I work with that it's okay to take a different path. It's okay to find your own path and find who you are. It doesn't need to happen tomorrow. It doesn't need to happen even in 5 years from now. It took me almost 8 years after I graduated from my doctorate to accept my first full-time teaching job. And I think that's such an important thing that we let our students know. There was definitely a period of time where I feel like there was musician shaming. You didn't go out and win an orchestra job. You must be a terrible musician, that you can't do that. And I hope that has diminished. And I am doing everything I can to diminish that with my own students. That it's important to just be you. And even if your path makes you leave music, that doesn't mean that you weren't talented or that you weren't a fantastic musician. It just means that your life took you in a different way. It brought you somewhere else. And there's nothing wrong with that. But don't lose the music. Keep it in your life in some way, even if that is encouraging your kids to play music, or playing in a community band or a community orchestra, or just listening to your favorite piece of music once a week. Don't you went into it because you loved it. Just because maybe it didn't become your career doesn't mean that you have to extract it from your life. It's important to keep that in your life.
Yeah, well, and I think it's such an important thing. Your story is, it's interesting and it's unique because we've had, of course, on the show, people who've taken all sorts of paths, but yours seems to be really autonomously chosen. Like you allowed yourself to both voice and oboe. You elected to take time off. You considered what administration could add to your musical voice, what your musical voice could add to your administration qualifications. And a lot of times we do come at it from a scarcity mindset of like, oh, I had to do these other things. Or you're right. Like, oh, if it doesn't happen by now, it means it's not going to, or I'm a failure and I can't take time. But as Galit and I have said several times on the show, we are getting to the age where we're seeing people elect to leave the field because they never gave themselves permission to take time off, consider what they really want, gauge burnout and those types of feelings. And basically what I hear you talking about is a unwillingness to invest in a scarcity mindset and believing that what the universe has for you will come to you.
Yes, 100%. I think too many of us put a tremendous amount of pressure on ourselves. And I will admit this is something that Becky Henderson taught me when I was in my doctorate. I was getting really burned out and I had a conversation with her. I said, I don't know how to balance my life. I have no idea what's going on. I feel like on a daily basis, I wake up and I'm completely lost as to where to start. And she was the one that said, well, let's sit down and figure it out. And she's the first person that said to me, it's okay to take a day off every week. You're allowed to have a day where you don't do music. Mm-hmm. It doesn't mean that you're a failure. It just means that you need a day to give your brain some time to relax. It was the first person that ever said that to me. That was like, you can't really function on a daily basis if you're not giving your brain the sleep, the food, and the time to recover. She's like, it's just like going to the gym. If you're a bodybuilder, you need to give your muscles time to recover. So you go and you do like, upper body day, lower body day, take a day off. And that day off is the day for your muscles to build and to regain their strength. And then you start the process over again. She's like, we're just athletes. That's all we are. So we should train like athletes, which means giving yourself a day of rest.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that most of us don't allow ourselves to do that. And that it was something that I took very seriously. And I try to get my students to do the same thing. And I think that that's an important reason of why I've been able to think clearly about the path of my career. Because on those days where I'm not playing and I'm not doing music, I can evaluate what's going on. How am I feeling right now? Am I feeling overwhelmed? Am I feeling stressed? Do I have enough reads? What performances are coming up? What do I need to do? What is my goal in a year from now, 3 years from now, 10 years from now? Am I setting myself up properly to be successful in those goals? We do a thing, all of my students have a binder that I keep in my office that has all their music that they've played while they've been studying with me. And then the very first thing in there actually is the goals section. So every semester we set goals, and then every year we set goals. And when they come in as a freshman, they set a goal for where they want to be in 4 years when they graduate. And this is because I feel like having small goals, medium-sized goals, and then long-term goals are the only way that we really, truly progress. Mm-hmm. And I try to do that for myself as much as possible, is set attainable goals and then those long range goals, but make sure that those small attainable goals are designed to get me to that farther end. And maybe it's because I'm type A and I overthink things, but it works for me, and I hope that sort of imparting that knowledge on students that I meet and my friends helps them a little bit, especially if they're feeling stressed or burned out or overwhelmed. I want them to know that it's okay to take a day. I'm going on a cruise next week with my mom for her 70th birthday, and my oboe is staying home. And like, it's fantastic. Like I love playing the oboe, but this was our first year post, quote unquote, post COVID, our first full year with like concerts back to normal and masks not being worn all the time and like everything back in person. I feel like there's been twice the amount of things because everyone wanted to make up for the 2 years we couldn't do anything.
It was rough. It was a rough year.
I am exhausted. And like sitting on a boat in the Caribbean, with a cocktail sounds like the best way to recover from celebrating my mom's 70th birthday. Like this sounds amazing. So I hope everyone goes and joins me everyone come on a cruise with me.
Double read cruise.
Double read cruise. Yeah.
That's our next project.
Double read dish cruise.
That's right.
I have a question. So you spoke really eloquently about how your arts admin experience informs who you are as a faculty member. But I would be really interested in knowing how your vocal training and emphasis impacts who you are as a oboist. How does that get brought into your artistic voice?
Oh, a lot. I have had students that have told me like I feel like I just take voice lessons with you. I do a lot of singing in lessons actually. And because I started on piano, I learn all of my students' piano parts to whatever they're playing so that I can play piano with them in lessons. It also makes them feel more comfortable when they finally get with their pianist for their jury or a recital. They've been hearing the piano part all semester. And I discuss a lot, in oboe, we do a lot of voicing and a lot of tongue placement and that is just vowel shape, which is the same as singing. And I do find that I actually connect very, very well with students who also sang in high school or that still sing. And they understand vocal technique or vocal language. I definitely teach very vocally. I talk a lot about the spin of the sound, which I know I got from Luke Gorelli, because he always talked about singing through the phrase, blowing through the phrase, making sure the air is always spinning and circulating. And so I talk a lot about vowel shape on the inside of the mouth. I talk a lot about air usage and how, like, if you were to sing something, you wouldn't stop your air in the middle of a word. Just because the word has two syllables doesn't mean you stop the air in the middle. I say, just speak a sentence. We do a lot of that. I say, I want you to put like words to this phrase and I want you to speak it to me. And then I'm like, great, you didn't put any breaks in there. And you had an overarching phrase. You got to the middle of the sentence and your voice got higher. You got to the end of the sentence, your voice got lower. And I said, that's all you need to do. Music is it's just a language. A phrase is a sentence. A breath in the middle is a comma. It's just, I said, why do you think we put commas in our music to represent a rest or a breath? It's a moment of pause.
Mm-hmm. I've never thought about that before. The visual comma,
yes, as a breath. If you put it in a sentence, it's just a comma.
Mm-hmm. I love it.
It's a moment of pause, like you would do speaking a sentence, and you'd see a comma, you'd take a brief pause, and then you'd keep going. Mm-hmm. That's a space for a breath. Mm-hmm. I think I probably thought about that. I literally just came from performing the Pulong Sonata. I finished at 11:45, and the second movement has tons of those little commas that you take a split-second break. And we were discussing those things actually this morning before we performed it. And so I don't see how oboe and the voice are really all that different. Bach always used to say, like, oboe is the most vocal of the instruments, which is why he constantly pairs it with soprano and tenor and baritone. And the cantatas are just filled with oboe. It's so vocal. We don't have to breathe. We just go. We just play, and it just happens. And I always tell my students, just drop your jaw, blow air, and let it happen. Don't worry about it. Our instrument will do it for us. It's just like speaking. I just want you to feel like you're just having a conversation with me, and don't worry too much about it. Say something to me. Say something, whether you even know what it is that you're saying. It's fine. Just say something in your lesson. I want you to feel as though you've communicated a sentence to me, and then communicate that with your audience. Allow them to figure out what the story is that you're saying, and what is the character, and there might not even, Brahms wasn't, programmatic music, but that doesn't mean there's no characters and that you can't put a voice to Brahms. Mm-hmm. You can still go and play a Brahms symphony and play that beautiful second movement solo in the first symphony and still tell a story and still sing it to your audience and have them go, I know exactly what that oboist is feeling right now because they sung a song to me. And I think that's something that is so important when it comes to the oboe.
Oh, I love that. Do you have any favorite memories of past performances that you'd like to share with us?
I have some funny ones and some good ones.
Give us all of them.
I think my favorite performance ever was not my best. I was very happy with it. This is a sad story. I apologize. So my dad passed away about 7 years ago of pancreatic cancer. And I have always wanted to play Tombeau de Couperin because what oboe player doesn't? It's beautiful and amazing. I finally had the opportunity to play it the summer, actually, before I left New Haven and before I left my job at Yale. I, for a couple of summers in a row, went to Atlantic Music Festival. It worked out in my work schedule. And my very last concert of the last year that I went was Tombeau de Couperin. Excuse me. And I got to play principal. And it also happened to be a few months after we found out my dad was diagnosed with cancer, and it was the last concert that he saw me perform. And he took a video of the first movement on his phone And I actually, a couple of weeks ago, was going through my Dropbox and found the video of him that he took of me playing the first movement. And it was just a very special concert, because my father was incredibly supportive of me as a musician. And because I traveled so much, he didn't get to see me play a lot. And the fact that, he was going through chemo, and it was like his one weekend that he didn't have treatment, and that he felt okay enough. And actually the day after, he got really sick, and my mom had to take him back home. But he was trying to hold on enough to see the concert. And that was just a very special concert for me to have him there.
Oh, thank you for sharing that with us.
Thank you for
You're
sharing.
right, I'm crying.
And unfortunately, that following February, he passed away.
Oh, I'm so sorry.
But he got to see me play a piece I've always wanted to play, and it's the only time I've ever performed the Principal Oboe part in my entire career.
Oh,
and he got to be there to see it, so that was a very special concert. I think funniest. Now we'll move to the other one.
A little levity.
Funniest concert that I think I've ever played. I was a student. This wasn't really funny. It's kind of terrifying, but it's funny now. I was at the Norfolk Cheer Music Festival, and we were playing. They used to do, I think it was on Monday nights, they used to do these concerts in like a small room where an ensemble would play a piece, and then there'd be a question answer session with the audience. And you would like talk about the piece, you would play a movement, they would listen, they would ask you questions. And you would get all sorts of questions, like how can you rehearse something like that? Or like, how do you guys stay together? All sorts of interesting things. And they were a very informed audience up there, which was really amazing. They had really in-depth questions. So about 5 minutes before we're playing the Francais First Woodwind Quintet, which is scary enough. And I go to
say the word Francais, and I it's like Halloween.
Yeah, I know, it's true. We love Francais here at OSU. I feel like we're constantly playing Francais music, and it's great. I love it. I love noodly things and
so hard.
So hard. So I go to clip my reed because it was just slightly flat, and I clipped my reed and clipped off the very tip of my finger.
No! Oh my God.
5 minutes before we're supposed to play the first Francais Woodwind Quintet.
No.
How bad was it?
Which finger?
My half whole finger.
No.
Yeah, because of my pointer finger, I was like holding the reed in place. I went to go cut, and it like hit right the top of my like fingernail, and then sliced off that like little piece right there. But still hit the reed. So the reed was really good. But now I had this.
That's my finger, but yeah, the reed's good.
So I like walk off stage, and it's like a room. It's not like a stage. So I was like, ow. And this like precious old lady is in the front row watching my finger bleed out into the floor. And I like walk off and find a stage manager, and I was like, so I have a problem. And she was like, oh dear. And like she immediately grabs like a first aid kit, and like we clean off my finger, and she wraps it like in gauze and some tape.
Gauze. Tape.
And to like try to stop the bleeding. And then she goes, do you think you could still play? And I was like, and like sweet little like 21-year-old me, not wanting to let anyone down, I was like, yeah, I'm sure I can figure it out. It's fine. So I go back on stage, and everyone's like, are you okay? And I was like, yep, everything's fine. Don't worry about it. Let's do a concert. And I play,
convulsing from pain.
Yeah, and I play this entire 4-movement craziness of circus music, plus a question and answer session, which went on for 45 minutes. We were on stage for like an hour and a half, and in the whole time, the gauze is getting like darker red and darker red and darker.
Oh my God!
And like someone had to bring me like more, and I had like replace it. I'm explaining to everyone like what happened. So like not only are we doing this, but now everyone knows that like I've been playing with like half a finger and oh my God, it was a mess. And somehow like it did get recorded and somehow you couldn't tell. I mean, like I don't know how, but like it didn't sound like there was anything wrong. I think I just went into like adrenaline hyper mode.
Yeah, this is like the oboe equivalent of the baby stuck under the car.
Yeah,
and
you're like
the
you just
mom.
have to do it. It doesn't
Yeah.
like you are on stage, the concert's about to start. We were the only thing happening on that concert. Like there was no alternative and the audience was there. Like I was going on whether I wanted to or not. And I just had to. And I think that is one of those moments of like we really are insane as musicians. Like we do the craziest things. We are asked to do things that no one would ever ask anyone else to do. And it doesn't seem abnormal to us. We're just like, yep, sure, happy to play a concert with half a finger. You know, but that's what happens and the show must go on. But it also is what makes our lives different and exciting and unique. So
It sure is different.
there is different, that's true.
Wait, did you have to go to did you have to get stitches or something? Or did you
No,
just like super glue it?
It kind of like grew back. I mean, I still I'm like a lizard. And I still have like a little bit, like you could see on like, it wasn't a ton, but you could see it like the tip of my finger. It's like slightly flat,
Oh God.
but like it healed. I went to rehearsal the next morning.
You're like, all this gauze is really going to get in the way of my half hole. Could you find me some super glue or something? Can we just like seal this sucker?
We just like tie it as tight as we could to try to make it as close to my finger size as possible, so it wouldn't infiltrate on the half hole
and act as a tiny tourniquet.
Yeah, which is kind of what happened. No, I mean, luckily, like the gauze was big enough that like I barely had to move my finger to get the half hole covered. It was like one slight movement and my half hole was covered. It was great.
So it's a double read podcast. So of course we have to ask about reads. Our listeners love to hear about all the geeky stuff, shape and staples and whatnot. And yeah, any read advice you have other than don't slice off your finger immediately before a concert.
Yes, don't do that. Bad choice. Bad life choice. So yes, I mean, I can give you guys kind of my setup if you want, so people can geek out over my setup. So I'll go through all that. Okay, so I play a Lorraine Royale. I use either the Cherugi 2 Plus silver staples or Nielsen Woodwind's Artist staples, also in silver. If you haven't tried those, they're amazing. I think they're incredible. I feel like they're based off of Lorraine staples or Pisoni staples, something along those lines. They are amazing, and they make incredible reads.
Are they, the opening size is similar to the Cherugi 2 Plus?
Yes. Mm-hmm. And they're thick-walled, so I like thick-walled staples. And they're great. I love them. I'm in a cane conundrum at the moment. I can't.
Me too.
Can't find anything I like. I'm in this place right now where I'm like, okay, well, there are so many people that gouge and shape cane. There must be someone that is making something that I like where I don't have to do that anymore.
Yeah.
I can pay someone to do that for me, right? I don't need to do that. I don't have enough time to do that. I would love to have some. If I was principal oboe of some major symphony, I would probably be a little bit more picky and be like, no, I'm going to pick everything myself and gouge it and shape it and want to. But it's just like, I just need reeds. My students buy reeds for me. I just need reeds. I need them now. I don't want to have to fiddle with all the other stuff. Mm-hmm. So I have been on the search this entire semester for shaped gouged cane that I really feel like is giving me what I want. I've tried a lot. I just haven't found anything yet that I feel like it matches what I'm looking for. So I'm still on the search. Anyone listening to this, tell me what you use if you buy shaped gouged cane and I will try it. I should start my own blog about gouged-shaped cane.
I'd read it.
An article in the journal
Do an article in
catalog.
the journal. I will buy all sorts of gouged-shaped cane from every person possible and make a read on it. But yeah, I haven't really found anything yet. But when I am doing it myself, I tend to prefer Rigati. I just buy Rigati cane from whoever has it in stock at the moment. And here in Oklahoma, in the summer, I use like 11 diameter cane. Otherwise, I find that my reeds are way too open. It gets too hot and humid. And then in the winter, I can use 10.5, 10.7, 10.75 is like my sweet spot in any.
Oh, yeah.
I love 10.75. It's
yeah.
just delicious. It makes it nice.
Having
a good plate of lasagna. Sorry. Wow, that was really weird. And I use Mac Pfeiffer is my go-to shape. I love it. It works really well on my instrument. When I had an AK, Lorraine AK, I used to use a Gilbert 1. That was like it worked great. I found that for me and just my setup, it's a little bit too wide on my oboe. Mac Pfeiffer's the sweet spot. I actually have 3 different gougers and I use them for different kinds of playing. If I'm doing orchestra playing, I gouge on my Graph machine. If I'm doing chamber music, I gouge on my Gilbert. And if I'm doing solo repertoire, I gouge on my Inalady. I don't know. I'm not really sure. I just experimented and that's kind of what I came up with. It was an unintentional experimentation. I had kind of played a whole bunch of concerts in like a 6-month period of time, and I saved the reeds because I wanted to see, and I marked all of my reeds in my reed log about where they were shaped on and all sorts of stuff. And I realized that that's kind of what it came to. Any orchestra concert I played, it had been on a Graph, and the same with chamber music and the same with solo rep. So I just kind of came to the conclusion that that's what I liked, and so now that's what I do. And it's been successful so far. My suggestions on reed making is don't let it control you.
How?
Well, I think
Controlled. She needs to be released.
I tell myself all the time, don't become as stubborn as your stubbornest reed. And that, for me, basically just means that we all know that reeds are a struggle for all of us. But I love the term, and I forgot who said it. I know some famous oboe player or someone said it, like, don't let an inanimate object tell you what to do.
John Mack.
Is that John Mack? And I wholeheartedly believe that. Like, it doesn't have a brain. No. You're the one with a brain.
That's hopefully true.
Yeah. Yes, absolutely. Some days I don't feel like I have one, but
exactly.
Really, I really do live by that saying. And I tell my students this all the time. Like, if you have a reed that is being so stubborn that it doesn't want to do what you want it to do, don't become more stubborn and try to force it. Just get rid of it.
Make another one.
Make another one. Becky Henderson used to say, I think she said that Richard Kilmer told her this, that he said like the best thing in his reed box is a blank because it means a new beginning. Like that is, as if you have an unmade reed, that is like the most joyous thing in the world because that could be the best reed that you make. So if you have that really annoying reed that's just being stubborn, don't be stubborn too and say, I'm going to force this reed to work. It doesn't want to. It doesn't like you. Just get rid of the thing.
Just not that into you.
It's just not that into you. And that's fine. Not every reed needs to like you. It's fine. Get rid of it. Get it out of your life.
Therapy?
Over. We are in. Welcome to what a lesson is like with me. It is basically a musical therapy session. It's okay. Throw it away and start a new one. I never let reeds ruin your life. I am wholeheartedly in this place right now of none of us are perfect. We need to stop with the perfection. We need to stop with the emphasis on perfection, and we need to bring back the beauty of music. It's so important that we make beautiful music that we love, that audiences love. We forget about the audiences. They are paying to see you play because they love it. It's not about you. It's about the music. And we are entertainers. Our job is to go on stage and create something beautiful and emotional and interesting and exciting and evoke emotion. And who cares if your read is not doing everything you want it to? They don't know that. They are going to love you anyway and play a note flat and let your read not speak on this for that one note. It's fine. It's okay. Just pick the read that seems to be functioning the best. Pick the read that plays the most in tune, that responds the best, that is giving you the most flexibility and dynamic range and allows you to be emotional when you play. If it's doing all those things, it probably will have a decent tone. Again, your audience probably has no idea what good tone on the oboe is anyway.
And we feel it more than other people hear it.
Yes, we feel it because the vibrations are in our face. Like we feel it in our sinuses. We know what good vibration feels like. And when you have a read that is maybe buzzing a little bit more or a little bit less than you normally would like, you feel it. And then you listen to a recording and you're like, oh, I still sound like me. Maybe I sound like a little bit more vibrant me or a little less vibrant me, but I still sound like me. Nick, don't be stubborn. Just pick the read that feels the best, that's functioning the best, and do some yoga and some deep breathing.
Eat a snack.
Eat a banana. And go on stage and have fun. Enjoy it. Show your audience how beautiful the music is and that they should enjoy it. And that's my read thing, Make reads that function. Don't let them control you. Don't be stubborn about having to make a read doesn't want to work. And just remember that there's always tomorrow and another read that you can try making. And my other advice that I give to beginning read makers is find a system and learn that system. I don't even really care what system it is that you learn, but find something. Find a teacher that has a system and do it. Do that. Perfect that. Once you have perfected that, then go experiment. Don't experiment before you can make a read that functions properly, because you're just going to get more confused. So find a teacher, find a person that is going to teach you how to make reads in whatever style it is that they make. Perfect it. Then if you want to try something different, then go ahead. Start experimenting with shapes and cane and gougers and all of that fun. But learn to make the read first.
So you already gave us some amazing advice, but I love to end with this question. What advice do you have for a young musician who aspires to have a career like yours?
If I could talk to little me 20 years ago, and other young musicians, I think what I would tell them is don't ever forget how much you love it. There are many different career paths that will allow you to be creative and in a career in music, especially these days. There are so many different ways to be involved in music. It doesn't mean that you need to be a performer. It doesn't mean that you need to be actively on stage. It might mean that you're backstage doing something, or you're a recording engineer, or you're a producer, or you're a conductor, or you're the CEO of a major symphony. There are so many different ways to bring joy and love of music and the arts to the world. Find the path that makes you the most happy, that allows you to be successful in whatever success means to you. Don't allow other people to define what success is, because that's different for each of us. And have fun in the process.
Andrew Parker, this was the best. Thank you so much for lifting our spirits and joining us on Double Read Dish. We really appreciate it.
Thank you for having me. It's been a joy talking to you, and I can't wait to see both of you again soon.
Oh my God, so soon.
So soon.
We hope you enjoyed that episode, and follow us on social media and tell us when you're scheduling your practice break. Maybe it's shorter than 2 weeks, longer. I don't know, but tell us. We're going to do this in solidarity together. Tell us how you're practicing self-care and setting up boundaries, and rate and review. Galee, who's on the next episode?
We welcome the amazing Lee Munoz, Assistant Professor of Bassoon at the University of Missouri, Kansas City Conservatory. Jackie, let's end this nerd parade.
Okay, I think I spilled juice on my desk because it's sticky.
Ew.
I'm going to go clean that up.